Morning, everybody, and welcome to class number 50. I was right. This is the beginning of a whole new year in terms of it being exactly 52 weeks ago that we started. So we missed three, and so we've got 49 in the can, and this will be class number 50. Today, I've been thinking about the class today, and I'm really excited about it because this topic, inner guidance, touches on so many aspects of our life, and it's uh, it's something that I think many people live their entire lives wondering about, and yet never get any real clarity about what's available to me when I sit quietly. We know what's available in our heads when we're in normal consciousness or normal awareness, and it's a lot of negative voices produced by routine, non-specific, or free-floating anxiety, um, criticizing us, telling us we're not good enough, bringing up fears of inadequacy. Watch out for this. Everything's out to get you. That shadow. There's a great story in Eastern philosophy about being afraid of the snake and then realizing it's not a snake at all. It's just a coiled rope. But to you, it was a snake. And even though in reality it was a rope, your reality, your subjective reality, is it was a snake, and it made you jump, and it made your heart race, and you only saw it out of the corner of your eye. So we talk a lot about perception as reality. Your perception of the reflection of your projection. That's the way I've been, that's the way I've been saying it lately. Reality is your perception of the reflection of your projection. Sort of a fun way to sort things out in your head. So the whole idea of inner guidance is what we'll address today. And it brings up the question of, well, who is available when we get quiet and those voices of the unconscious, those amygdala-based, fear-based, survival-based voices tend to diminish somewhat, and the still small voice of the intuition rises. Is that the Lord Almighty? Is that the Godhead? Is it Jesus? Is it the angels? Is it saints? Is it animal spirits? Is it your ancestors? Is it your guardian angels? Or could it be your own overshadowing soul, above and free of form, on its own plane? Well, I'll leave that to you to decide. And how do we know whether to trust it, whether to honor and respect that voice? Does it tend to arrive with a sense of confirmation? Does it appear to be reliable? And can we test that out? Just some of what we're going to talk about today after the opening meditation, and fit it into last week's discussion about the practical applications for solving problems. Remember, I proposed last week that there's only two types of problems. Either you know what you want, but the problem is getting it, or getting there, or making it happen, manifesting it, producing it, creating it. In which case, we offered you the technique called mirror the mind for, well, it's sort of a positive thinking on steroids. Imagining yourself already having it with great clarity and specificity. And then we're left with, well, that second kind of problem then is, I don't know what I want, or I sort of think I know what I want, but I'm not really sure whether it's what I really want, and I haven't really examined why I want what I seem to want. So I go to envision myself already having it, and I sort of come up against a wall then. What about the second kind of problem, when we just don't know what we want? And so we'll talk about inner guidance and how to ask yourself, your higher self, uh, and again, explore some of the possibilities of where that comes from, what makes it reliable, and how is it different from the monkey mind that is so negative. So with that set up, let's settle in and do our opening meditation. If you'll get comfortable in your chairs or your meditation position, close your eyes, form the intention to meditate by feeling the chair or the sofa, the pillow, the bed, whatever you're sitting on. Feel it supports you, and acknowledge that you need not cooperate with the furniture, that it will support you as surely as the floor supports the furniture. So you can begin to create and sense a letting go feeling throughout your body from head to toe. Feel yourself softening. Simply remind yourself that this is a safe time and you're in a safe place, such that you're able to, first of all, close your eyes. And the unconscious mind in the brain, as you close your eyes, receives that signal. Oh, we must be safe. And then as you begin to create and sense a feeling of relaxation from head to toe, feel the muscles relaxing and unwinding. That's a second message to the unconscious and the brain. Well, I must be safe if my conscious self has decided to not only close our eyes, but to feel this softening in our muscles, this yielding feeling. And then we take 3 or 4 nice, slow, deep, purposeful, and deliberate breaths, pulling in strength and power as you inhale through the nose. Hold for just a peak. Hold at that peak for just a moment. And as you exhale slowly, just as slowly, through the nose or the mouth, you feel the letting go feeling even more deeply. And then do that a couple of more times, at least to a slow 4 or 5 second count. Some of you who are accustomed to meditation and deep relaxation could be an 8 or a 10 count on the in-breath and an 8 or 10 seconds on the out-breath. But slow it down. Make it even. And feel the letting go on the exhalation side. Like the sigh of relief as a sigh of release. What a wonderful feeling to relax. Three messages to the brain and the unconscious that there are no problems that need your immediate attention. You can just let them go. That for the next few minutes, there's no benefit, certainly no need to worry about anything. There's not a single problem in your life that needs your attention. Whatever they are, they can wait. Because you're safe. And you can relax. If you haven't already, begin to breathe normally and naturally, allowing your body to breathe itself. And lift your attention to the bottom of your nose. Find your place there. Wherever you feel most comfortable at the bottom of the nose, settle in. Focus by letting go. And see where your attention comes to rest. And consider that your body is being breathed for you. And you are the watcher. You are merely the witness. Of your body breathing all by itself. The in-breath and the out-breath. The back and forth becoming cyclic. And around and around. Smoothly and evenly and passively. Allowing your physical body and its nervous system to determine the rate and the depth of your breathing, all by itself. And you are then free to be the witness. To be the curious witness. To wonder at this tendency, this ability, this impulse of the body automatically, of its own initiation, to breathe on your behalf. You're not doing that breathing. You could assert yourself at any point and hold your breath, or accelerate, as if panting, for example. You could choose to purse your lips and breathe out forcefully. Any number of things, but you choose not to. And yet the breathing remains. As you completely let go of all responsibility for doing the breathing. And simply observe it. And we do this mindfully because to think about past breathing or future breathing is absurd on the surface. All breathing is now. And there's no judgment, though you observe with curiosity, even fascination, at the body breathing itself or your body being breathed for you. There's no bad breath or good breath or better way or worse way to breathe. There's nothing to judge. So in the same way, we could, by simply forming the intention and allowing my voice to go with you, shift your awareness to your thinking, your mentality, your ideation, and notice the ideas that petition you for attention, even as I guide you in this meditation. And in the same way, watch the rise and fall of those thoughts as they're presented to you, as they sustain, and as they fade away, only to be replaced by another thought, an idea, sustained but destined to fade. And release again and again, not through any effort or resistance. Simply release the temptation to follow those thoughts and go back to the breathing, reminding yourself that this is the object of this particular type of meditation. To observe your body breathing itself, to feel how it feels to be breathed. And to continue to feel more and more relaxed, safer and safer, going deeper, feeling more and more content. As if for a few minutes now, nothing needs to be done, and you can simply be a human being rather than doing. Grant yourself that permission. I do nothing but watch, to witness without judgment, and yet I remain. I do nothing but observe my beingness. You feel that deep release, that letting go, and yet you remain. For you are, you see, that awareness. This awareness, silently, internally, consider I am that. I am awareness. I am consciousness. I am aware. I am that awareness. And you remain. You exist. More peaceful, more content, and happier than ever. This peace, this contentment, this happiness resides perpetually within us. It is a choice. It's a decision that need not be attained or accomplished. It's a matter of letting go of effort to attain and to accomplish. That we discover, rediscover, and remind ourselves of the extraordinary wisdom of being aware of yourself as awareness itself. To be aware of your body breathing itself. To be aware of your thoughts and feelings. To be aware of your ability to consider consequences before you initiate action. Is to be ever more aware of your relationships and your place in the world. And to be aware of awareness itself. To notice what you notice. That you're able to notice. That you can release your attachments and the clutching and the holding on for dear life. And step back, even rise above the situation. And take your time, choosing how you be in the world. Coming from peace, coming from contentment, coming from joy, joy, happiness for no reason, but that you are awareness itself. Drink that in. Imagine every cell and corpuscle in your body immersed in your awareness that you are aware of being awareness itself. This is love. It's like a universal group hug. Oh my God, I belong here. Of course I belong here. I am here, I'm there, I'm everywhere. Oh my. And let your fascination and the wonder and the awe of it all expand beyond all limits. An expanded awareness that you bring with you effortlessly, a knowledge and understanding that you'll never forget. But because of the seductive nature of the physical world, we need to practice on a daily basis, if only for 12 to 15 minutes a day. To unlearn what we've been taught about the world and relearn the truth, so as to be better in the world for yourself and your service to others. Remember the 3 simple steps to returning to the wide awake state. First, simply form the intention to do so. Secondly, create and sense a transition, a kind of a rising up, as if in a balloon floating gently upward, or like a skin diver or scuba diver floating slowly toward the surface. Such that 3 is eyes open, wide awake, open your eyes now, wide awake, alert, rested, refreshed, feeling better than before, back in the room, eyes open, wide awake, feeling better and better. And a big breath. Good. Doggies. One of the most important breakthroughs in esoteric philosophy, in metaphysics, in mysticism, in comparative religion, in transpersonal psychology, is the understanding that there's more than the persona, more than the personality, more than the self, small s, self, who we've come to presume we are. Someone says to you, "Who are you?" You're likely to say your name. Certainly understandable that you would. Who are you? Well, I'm Michael Benner. Really? Well, that's your name. I get that. Benner is probably the male side, the masculine side of your family. And Michael is a name that was given to you so that you'd be distinguishable from your brothers and sisters. That's your name, Michael Benner, but who are you? Well, usually then we go to our profession. Well, I'm a student, I'm a teacher, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm an Indian chief. Or maybe we go deeper. I'm my wife's husband. I'm my husband's wife. My boyfriend or girlfriend's significant other. Or a gender. I'm a male, I'm a female. That used to be easy. It's getting, with gender fluidity, a little more complicated now as we reconsider that it's beneficial to, well, again, consider that each and every one of us has male and female aspects within us. I learned early in life how to be, quote, a man, a boy, and then a man. It took maturity and meeting some extraordinary women to learn to pull on my feminine side. Women, too, pulling on their masculine energies, learning to assert themselves, stand up for themselves, demand not to be objectified. And this process can continue. And at some point, I would suggest that there's an enormous importance in considering that even beyond our physical presence in form, in a body, on this planet, we are, as we explored in the meditation we just did, the awareness that illumines and animates it. For in the end, we're a sack of protoplasm, we're a bag of meat made out of what we've had to eat that is made out of the minerals of the earth. Look in your vitamin cabinet, there's minerals in there. There's magnesium and potassium and manganese and boron and silicon and zinc. There's even a little gold in your body and some silver and all of that, as Joni Mitchell said so eloquently, is stardust. We're stardust. We're the clay of the earth. And yet something illumines and animates that. What is that? Isn't that closer to who we are than the meat puppet? And who is that? And given that most religion, particularly the monotheistic or Abrahamic religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, would have us consider that the soul, that spiritual aspect, spirit meaning energy or breath that illumines and animates us, dwells within. Indeed, I think it does, but what if it also overshadows? What is the overshadowing soul? If you come to these classes, Wisdom of the Soul classes on Sunday, on a regular basis, you've heard us talk about this. The whole idea of an overshadowing soul that perhaps above and free of form, I say perhaps, I feel strongly about this, that above and free of form, there is an overshadowing soul. And that instead of you and me as human beings having a soul, maybe it's the other way around. Maybe the soul has us. maybe we're not a body with a soul, but a soul with a body. Now, 1,000 years ago, I could be burned at the stake for that. I have my limbs pulled out, stretched on the rack, tortured, punished by a church that presumes that it's the state, that gets its authority not from the people, but from what they claim to be the Lord on high. This is the problem with theocracy, whether it's the Taliban or the Christian nationalists in America that want only Christians to be citizens. The whole idea of the church being the state. That's why we have separation of church and state. Not only freedom of religion, but freedom from religion. That's all part of the First Amendment. It's a basic liberty to be free from the rules and regulations imposed by the church. One of the problems we have with the Supreme Court right now, there's 5 very, very conservative Catholics on the Supreme Court. And they've made their religious beliefs law. And we're tiptoeing back toward the Dark Ages. That's what happened when the church, really before the discovery of the so-called Americas, that's what the Dark Ages were. What made them dark? Why were there no universities in Europe? Why was civilization not advancing the way it was in the Middle East and the Far East? Why did we not have the scientific discoveries and the art and the culture that the rest of the world had? Well, there were dark ages in Europe. Civilization was not flourishing because of the dogma, the ritual, the superstition of the church imposing itself on the state and claiming to be the state. And yet, one of the beliefs that is held over is the idea that the soul indwells only. It does not overshadow. It indwells, and it's stained. You're born evil, and you're tempted by these animal impulses. Well, true enough that we're tempted to do horrible things, and we're capable of horrible things because we are in animal bodies. But we're also inspired to do beautiful, wonderful things. We'll sacrifice our lives, risk your life to run into a burning building to save somebody's dog or kitten. Sort of illogical, but many people are compelled to do that without even thinking. What is the goodness in us? What is the godness in us that makes us care? Why do you care? Why do you find a flower beautiful? Why does beauty make you pause? And hopefully you have not relinquished that wonder and that awe. That true beauty is a transcendent experience. To realize that not only do you care, and that your identity is less in what you think of yourself than what you care about, but that you care. What is it that causes you to give a damn? Why do you care? Why do you love? Why do things matter to you that matter? What matters and why? That's who you are, not this meat sack or the personality that we've cobbled together to gain acceptance and approval from other people. There's a deeper essence to us. And if that is so, if there is a higher self, so-called, a solar self, an eternal, immortal, infinite self that stands between the one and the manifested multiplicity, that middle element between the one and the many, we ought to be able to contact it, right? We ought to be, we ought to be able to listen, such that we have words like inspiration or, what else can we call it? An epiphany, a revelation, a good idea, the aha experience, the lid lifting, enlightening, aha, oh my, the thoughts that arrive full blown. I love that phrase. Joseph Chilton Pierce. Let's give credit where it's due. Attribution. Joseph Chilton Pierce, author of Cracking the Cosmic Egg, talked about intuition as thoughts that arrive full blown. And we don't even think about it, and it's not even taught in the schools. Nobody ever in my educational experience made any reference at all to the wonder of an idea that arrives already full-blown, already figured out, so to speak, with a beginning and a middle and an end and a set of conclusions already figured already figured out for me, such that I'm blinded by the light. To borrow from the Man from Man song. Trying to remember who actually wrote that. It wasn't Man from Man. It's a great image, though, blinded by the light. Oh my God, that lid lifting. Sometimes intuition, revelation, the aha experience comes slowly. You've heard me talk about the dawning of a new idea. Sometimes, like the archetype you see in cartoons of the light bulb over somebody's head, sometimes it just pops on like that. Oh my God, well, why didn't I think of this before? Boing, boing, boing. And sometimes you're thunderstruck. It's like the top of your head blows off and your life has changed forevermore. But it arrives full blown, already thought out. Not little seeds, but the whole ding dang doodle. Where's that come from? Why don't we wonder? Why don't they tell us in school? Why don't they tell us in church, temple, synagogue, mosque, where that comes from? And again, I'm not going to pick nits here. If you think that's the Lord Almighty, the Absolute Godhead speaking to you personally, fine. If it's Jesus or Buddha, any of the prophets, the saints, the sages, your ancestors, animal spirits, I don't think the belief system matters that much. What matters is get quiet, ask and you shall receive, knock and the door shall be opened. Those phrases ought to sound familiar to you. And so the solution to the second kind of problem, well, what if I don't know what I want? And again, this dovetails with last week. Well, when I know what I want, but the problem is getting it, I need to visualize myself already having it. That'll accelerate, amplify my growth toward it, create opportunities, provide insight and understanding. If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. There is no there. That's the point of the George Harrison song. Lewis Carroll plays with that also in Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, when Alice is talking to the hookah-smoking caterpillar, and he wants to know where she's going, and she says, well, I don't know. And he said, well, then it doesn't really matter what road you take if you don't know where you're going. And then George Harrison did that song that if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. I think I made the point well last week in class that you need to have a destination if you expect to get there. You need to know what you want. That avoiding what you do not want is not a goal, and spending your whole life avoiding what you do not want is not going to be fulfilling. It's not going to make you happy. It's not productive. You need to ask yourself, am I continually avoiding what I don't want? Avoiding pain and suffering? Avoiding deep commitments, profound relationships? Avoiding the fact that I hate my job and so I'm going to just keep doing the job? Avoiding having to figure out what I'm really here to do? What is my calling? What am I supposed to be doing? Avoid, 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 deny, deny, deny. That's not going to do it. So positive thinking, goal-oriented thinking aids in the manifestation. Healing works in the same way. Physical healing, emotional healing, just another kind of problem solving. When you know what you want, go to a deep, quiet, meditative place and visualize yourself already having it and experience the passion and the enthusiasm of, hot damn, oh boy, this is going to be great as I'm every day moving closer and closer to the realization. Because I'm in the image of the Creator, I can create, especially when I have love in my heart. And that which I intend to create and am creating is for the greater good of all, not just me, regardless of consequences. And so the only other kind of problem, what if I don't know what I want? What do I do when I don't know what to do? I don't have a goal. I tried to visualize myself having it, and then I realized I don't know what it is. The solution is to pull on your inner guidance. Now, before I go any further with this, and again, in about 10 minutes, we're going to do Q&A, so I implore you again to just put a little note in the chat box. Hannah is our co-host today. Direct it to Hannah. A little comment, nice little concise question that helps you get your thoughts organized. Hannah will call on you, and then we'll unmute and give you the opportunity to unmute, follow up. We can go a little deeper if you wish. One, how shall I say this? One additional aspect of accessing inner guidance, sort of a tangential technique that I want to mention here, if not dwell on, is incubating dreams. If you're a regular pot smoker, if you smoke weed, it tends to interfere with short-term memory such that long-term memory is unaffected, but you're less likely to remember your dreams. Lots of pot smokers will say, well, I enjoy smoking pot. I think it's healthy for me. Actually, it's good for me. Stimulates the endocannabinoid system. It's my medicine. Fine, but it's quite possible it's going to interfere with your ability to remember dreams. So make no mistake, everybody dreams every night. The question is, do you remember the dream? And if you form the intention to remember the dream, for example, if you put a journal that is dedicated to dreams and nothing but dreams on the table next to your bed, you're much more likely to remember the dream. And when you wake up in the morning, before you roll out of bed and your feet hit the floor, you reflect on the dream. It even changes the way you awaken in the morning, bringing the memory of your most recent dream with you. And you jot it down, even if it's just a fragment of the dream. And as you become better at that, you're then able to incubate dreams to solve problems of this type. I don't know what I want. Help me discern. Again, not what to do, because we don't know what to do about what. That's the wrong question. Do not approach problem solving with what should I do? What do you think I should do? I don't know what to do. The approach always begins with, do I know what I want? That's where you begin to solve a problem. And if it's yes, then you do the mirror the mind technique and think positively, be optimistic, know that it's unfolding, because every day you visualize yourself already having it, right? And your behavior is about moving toward a pre-existing goal or objective. Like, I know it already exists in time and space, I'm just moving closer and closer to it. Once we begin to become more skilled at remembering our spontaneous dreams, then you can program a dream or incubate a dream. And the way you do this, when you have a problem of the type we're talking about this week, I don't know what I want, is to get into bed, say your prayers, or pump your pillow, or toss and turn a little bit, or whatever your little ritual is before going to sleep. And as you settle in and begin to relax and let go and drift off to dreamland, subvocalize silently, internally in your head, and say something along these lines. And who do you speak? Who are you speaking to when you speak to yourself silently? You're talking to the unconscious. The conscious mind is talking to the unconscious, sometimes called the subconscious. That's a non-clinical term for the same thing, subconscious or unconscious. Your conscious mind says to the unconscious, when I wake up in the morning, I'll remember a dream that will contain the information I'm looking for to solve this problem. You can use your own words. You can change the order of the phrases. However, be sure and include when I wake up in the morning, because, or at my appointed time, some of you may be using a mental alarm clock. That's another great technique. Should not have to set an alarm. Everybody has the ability before they lay down, even for a nap, to look at a clock, see what time it is, close your eyes, visualize another clock, seeing what time you wish to wake up, and you will wake up automatically. To the minute, you'll be amazed at how accurate your internal clock is. So you would do that first if you're going to incubate a dream. And then just say to yourself, when I wake up in the morning, because you don't want to wake up at the end of every 90-minute dream cycle and remember the dream, write it down, have to go back to sleep. So you have to be literal and not figurative in your language. When I wake up in the morning, at the time I intend to wake up, I will remember a dream that contains the information I'm looking for to solve the problem I have in mind. And I'll understand it, and I'll write it down in my journal. Because sometimes you get little pieces. You don't always get the whole thing. And if it doesn't work the first night, you do it the second night, you do it the third night. You never learned anything in one try. Get back on the bicycle. Practice your tennis and your golf game. Practice your musical instrument. Same thing here. Till you get that going, right? There's no limit to the problems you can solve by programming dreams. I repaired a car once. It was a van, actually. I had this Dodge van in the 70s. Hannah remembers this. And I flushed a radiator once and thought I'd save some money, do it on my own. And I hooked the hoses up wrong, but I was so careful about it that when it occurred to me that I may have done that, I dismissed it out of hand. I said, no, that couldn't be the problem. I just know my heater doesn't work and there's something wrong. And every time my intuition said, well, check the hoses. Maybe you switched the hoses. I dismissed it. I knew I had not done that. So finally, in desperation, I programmed a dream, and I woke up in the morning remembering a dream where I'm changing the heater hoses. And so I thought, well, okay, I might as well try it. And that fixed it. So again, whether we're incubating a dream or whether we're just going to do a meditation to stand open and receptive to our own higher self, our own oversoul, everybody has inner guidance, but you're not going to access it in normal consciousness, either in a sleep, in a dream state, or a meditative state, which is the same brainwave level, the alpha brainwave level, where you dream. You can also dream in theta. Deep non-dream sleep is delta. Remember the 4 levels? We went over this in class. Bears repeating. Beta is wide awake. Alpha is mild meditation. It's where kids play, where the outer world falls away and you just live in a nice, focused, little warm, fuzzy bubble. Theta is a trance state associated with hypnagogic imagery and REM activity in the eyes. And below theta, 4 cycles or less, is delta, deep non-dream sleep. You come out of that up into theta for 5 minutes or so every 90 minutes and then back down into deep non-dream sleep. It continues all night long. If you didn't dream, you'd go crazy in a week. Google it if you don't believe me. Experiments have done. Again and again and again. Experiments have been done where people are allowed to sleep as much as they want. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours. But are robbed of dream time. They're gently awakened every time they begin the REM activity. And they begin to hallucinate after 4 or 5 days. They get schizophrenic and crazy. Dreams are imperative, gang. So don't question. If you say, I never dream, that's nonsense. You may not remember your dreams, but you're dreaming. But if you'd rather, yeah, give me just a sec. Give me one more sec.
Yep.
This idea of inner guidance has to happen in a meditation. That's the only thing I'm saying. Obviously, dreaming is a sleep thing, but all you have to do is ask yourself. Some people imagine a guide, a spirit. You could think of Jesus. You could think of the smartest person you ever have known or known of. You could imagine yourself having a dialogue with Einstein or Stephen Hawking or some great humanitarian, the Dalai Lama, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's your imagination. But it facilitates you questioning and then standing open and receptive to your own, I would say, your own oversoul on its own plane, above and free of form. Let that information precipitate down. It comes as light, and it arrives with a confirmation of, oh my God, that's it. That's what or that's a better idea. And then you just repeat the process. I'm sorry, Hannah, go ahead.
No, it's all good. I was just going to say it's the top of the hour. We don't have any questions or comments right now, but I wanted to encourage people to leave them. And it doesn't even have to be a comment, could just be your favorite part of the meditation or something you found interesting or something reminded you of, like I want to share, but I want to give other people, just go ahead and take a few seconds to think about that.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it to you to share your experience along these lines. I know none of this is new to you. Are you more likely to use dream incubation, or do you just meditate and stand open like many people use prayer this way? This is what prayer is, not just the petitioning, but the listening, the standing open. And I think that could also be called contemplation, open and receptive to good ideas and to insight. What's your experience with that?
Well, I mean, I do remember you talking about programming dreams from a long time ago. I never cultivated the ability to do that, but I definitely have like envisioned parking spaces and practiced, I don't know, desired outcomes in my mind, or like seeing something in my mind transpire. But what I wanted to say that you reminded me of, and this might tie in with the kind of be careful what you wish for you will surely get it kind of thing. And also this imagining. And I was once talking to somebody about how I kept like flashing on this vision of getting in a car crash. And she was like, "Ooh, careful of that," right? And I said, well, what I was doing in response to that was that I was imagining myself safely getting out of a car at about the age of 90, so that to kind of counteract any, visions of getting in a car crash and coming to some sort of injury at a younger age, I would just picture myself healthfully getting out of a car at a ripe old age. But I also, and so this is kind of, I would also imagine that positive thing numerous times. And I kind of did it intuitively. And then I was later at this Montessori conference where they were talking about neuroscience and the brain. And it showed this template about how experiences are actually, they make marks on our brain, and traumatic experiences make greater marks, and they kind of can take up more space even. And so when working with children and we're trying to help them, recover from trauma or heal from trauma, it took some crazy number of times more of the positive experience, the positive reinforcement, to overcome like one negative reinforcement. And I'm forgetting the numbers, but it was crazy. It was like 1,000 times of positive reinforcement to counteract the one negative thing. And so I don't know if you wanted to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, most definitely. Thanks for the opportunity. The brain finds negative concepts, negative ideas, and traumatic experience much more, how shall I say, sticky than a positive experience. It's much more amenable to a negative suggestion than a positive suggestion, because one of the primary functions of the brain is survival. So we have a whole area of the brain we've talked about on several occasions, the amygdala, and even primitive animals. Dinosaurs had an amygdala. And to this day, birds and lizards and toads and pollywogs are emotionally reflexive. They have this sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system that causes them to react to stimulus before the stimulus even reaches the brain. Somebody says, we talk about reaction time. Somebody could surprise you, jump out from behind the corner and go boo, and you jump before you even hear the sound, before you even hear them shouting. You're already in the air because the signal goes to the spine and then back to the muscle, and it acts reflexively. And only then, as it continues to the brain, do you consciously perceive, oh my God, you know. So the brain is hardwired for anything negative, uh, disastrous, dangerous, a threat, or even the appearance of such. Doesn't even have to be real. It could be imagined danger or fear of danger or a threat. And as you say, that imprints itself on the brain.
I think it makes an even bigger imprint, no? Maybe for the sake of survival,
Yeah, it's a stronger impress.
right?
Yes, because it's survival based. A a wonderful thing that happens to you, a joy, a happy, has the same effect. It's remembered, it's recalled, it becomes part of your belief system, part of the system of reward and punishment, but it doesn't have the emotional power or the amplitude. It doesn't arrive with the same force. And so it needs more repetition unless, and this is my primary caveat in my response to what you've said, unless and until we use altered states of deep relaxation, in which case we can radically reduce the number of repetitions it takes to learn from a positive result or outcome. So let's take, I'm a guitar player. Okay, so I'm trying to play this impossible riff on the guitar, and it involves some coordination with my left hand and my right hand, and some stretching maybe with the left hand, and quick movement, and it's just very difficult for me to do. Well, I can either practice that in normal consciousness 100 times, 500 times until I get it down, or I could close my eyes and imagine myself doing it perfectly. And when I close my eyes and get deeply relaxed and visualize myself playing that passage perfectly, and maybe even do it in slow motion, and hear in my imagination how it sounds, then slowly, still in my imagination, speed it up, and then I open my eyes and pick up the guitar, I will have enormously accelerated the rate at which I learn that passage. You see? So while it's true that it takes many more positive reps than a negative traumatic situation to impress the brain, muscle memory, learning, understanding, the antidote to that is deep relaxation, visualization, very much like last week's class about mirror the mind. When you do that in a deeply relaxed state, the amygdala feels so safe that it's basically out of the loop. It has suspended its effort to resist everything new and unknown. It's more amenable to suggestion. That's the way we say it in hypnosis, more friendly and open to learning and new things without trying to find danger in every nook and cranny. And he goes, oh, this is what you want. Oh, see. And then the grace comes out and the elegance comes out. And the number of repetitions that it takes to learn something is reduced enormously. It's a very important principle, and I'm thrilled that you brought it up. You have follow up on that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I do, but there's also one comment and a raised hand, but it did make me think of two different things. One is like the difference between, like, as a lot of, I'm in AA, so I hear drinking stories and people talk about blacking out. And what I learned about blacking out when you drink is you're never going to get that memory back because it never made an imprint at all.
Exactly. Right.
But I'm wondering how that compares to like having traumatic experiences that people subconsciously block out, to the point where they don't remember it, or it takes some time or therapy to recall it. I mean, I don't know if I'm asking about the difference, but I'm just thinking about those two things. And then my one other point is that when you were talking about
Oh, I got to do this one at a time.
okay.
Don't. I'm too old for you to give me multiple questions. Uh, Memory is a relaxation skill. So the more stressed you are, the less likely you are, or traumatized, the less likely you are to remember the trauma. How many times have we said 2 days later, and I don't even remember what we were arguing about? Right? This is this is so important when it comes to uh, so many people commonly accept they have a bad memory when in fact there's nothing to remember. Oh no, I can't find my keys. Damn, it happened again. Where are my keys? I know gosh, I have such a bad memory. No, you don't. The reason you don't know where your keys are is that when you put them down, you were thinking of something else. You were not conscious. So there's nothing to remember. It's not that you have a bad memory. There's nothing to remember. You're more likely to remember what you were thinking about when you unconsciously drop the keys. So if when we put it, this is why living mindfully, this one example of the importance of living mindfully, if you don't keep your keys in the same place, if you're prone to just dropping them because you're in a hurry uh, for whatever reason, or you got a lot of bags, or you're busy, all you have to do is watch yourself doing it. Be aware and awake. Notice what you notice. I'm putting my keys here. That'll be easy to remember. You don't have to chant it, repeat it twice or more. Just say it once. I'm putting my keys down here. This will be easy to remember. Not even out loud, in your head. And then you say a day later, where did I leave my keys? Oh, yeah, I remember. See? So, yeah, of course, trauma shatters memory, destroys memory. There's nothing there to remember. It was occupied, your attention was occupied by the trauma. And survival kicked in, and other matters were more important. So the subtleties of it, or the deeper meaning of it, or the implications are often lost.
Okay, I want to be careful not to take up too much time, and I just, because my other thing is sort of just a comment on what you were talking about, the guitar. And when I give piano lessons to the kids, we we talk a lot about the music first, and then I encourage them the first time they play it to play it really, really slowly.
Yeah.
Because what I found is when they play it because it is possible to play it right the first time. And when they do that, then they never make mistakes again. But if they rush through it and they make mistakes the first time through, then they have to unlearn those mistakes, which I think is interesting. But then there's a raised hand, but Larry put a comment in, and he said that he used to use short meditation at work to solve problems. I don't know if you want to comment on that or take Patrick's question.
Well, let's give Larry an opportunity to unmute if he wishes. Larry, do you want to expand on that a little?
Well, just to say that, in my work, I sit at the computer a lot and working on a lot of things. And I'm retired now, so I don't do any of that anymore. But, when I have a difficult problem and I work on it for a while and I'd say, I'm not getting anywhere on this. And so I just close my eyes and put my hand one over the other and sit in front of the computer and just go into a 2-minute meditation. And usually when I became aware again, I had the solution, or at least the place to look for what was causing the problem, one or the
Yeah.
other.
Yeah. A new loose end to follow. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea. And, another version of that I bet all of us have had positive experiences with if we're patient enough to do it, is whenever we're at loggerheads, just to put it down and walk away and come back later. I often suggest to clients who get in trouble with email, and I think most people would be surprised how many problems come from email that's not been well written and is a poor substitute for direct conversation face to face with all of the facial cues and body language and intonation that you will never get in an email. If you must send an important email, a communication, a text-based communication that is significant and will be impactful, never send it after you've composed it, even if you think it's your final draft. Put it down, save it, walk away from it, and wait at least a day. What's that old saying? Sleep on it. And come back and look at it the next day, and you'll have such a much better view of it, and often save yourself a lot of trouble and a lot of grief by going, oh my God, I almost sent that. Thank God I slept on it, or I gave it overnight to settle in. And because as you sleep, I can tell you as an author of a book, the same thing. I get to a chapter and I read it, or my editor says, this is confusing. I don't know what you're talking about. Well, I can get defensive and fight for my right to say it the way I want to say it, or I can listen to him or her, put it down, come back the next day, take a look at the paragraph, and suddenly I see it in a whole new light. So that element of
Commenting on
time.
what
Go ahead.
commenting on what you just said there. I mean, I can't count the number of times that I've been trying to communicate with somebody on email, and they will respond, and I have no idea how they got what they got out of what I wrote.
Yeah.
I don't know, where did you get that? Where does that come from? I don't understand. So usually I try to restate what I said in another way, and tell them I didn't mean to intend, or I didn't intend to mean that.
Right.
But I don't know. I mean, I think it's really good advice to think about and try and relook at what we write and or say, and just make sure that it's what we intend, and not that nobody can get something different out of that.
Yeah, to the best of your ability. You can never fully prevent it, of course, but you can consider before you hit the send button, uh, is there potential here for this to be misunderstood? And can I find a better, softer, gentler way to write, generally, to be less declarative? That's the way I would say it. In our general writing, social media posts, less declarative. What I mean by that is less insistent, less demanding, less arrogant, less authoritative, just a little softer and gentler, There's that IMHO, in my humble opinion, IMHO. That's one way of signaling, but there is in writing. I've always liked the word suggestion ever since I began to identify myself as a hypnotherapist or a hypnotist. That word suggestion. I'm not telling you, I'm not ordering you. I'm not commanding you. I'm not instructing you. Could I just offer a suggestion? And then bring that feeling to all of your communication. And if they reject it or they come back at you to make you wrong, you're in a position where you can just let it go. You don't have to counter with a defensive, dig in your heels argument, arguing, restating your position. Um, Sometimes we have to do that. Sometimes you have to draw a line, of course, but I love writing and public speaking, and it's a wonderful field to develop your skills and your abilities to be an ever better communicator and increase the likelihood you're going to be understood, or better said, decrease the number of chances you'll be misunderstood. But there's no guarantee. People see what they see. We're all projecting. Again, reality is your perception or the reflection of your projection. So we're all projecting, even those who are more conscious than most others. We're projecting. It's just the way the universe works. Thanks, Larry. Was it Patrick that also had a comment?
It's Patrick and then also Doralicia, and I'm gonna sign off, and so just know that there's one more person after Patrick.
All right, thanks, Hannah.
Okay, thanks, bye.
Hannah's got another Zoom event she's off to. Patrick, how you doing?
Good. How you doing? Can you hear me okay?
Just loud and clear. Yep.
Okay, great. First, I want to thank you for that suggestion about programming a parking spot, because that's really come in handy last week.
Good.
Yeah, that's great. And then I've heard you say namaste, and I've heard that before, but I never knew the origins of that. But I guess it's the algorithm between having your show, and I was watching some Eckhart Tolle, and then came the Swami G from Vedanta, and I've never heard of anything about Hinduism, or I'm just totally ignorant of the whole Hindu type thing. But Swami Ji was talking a lot about meditation, and then the oneness and awareness, which I've learned from you. And so it's just I was wondering if you are familiar with the Vedanta.
Yeah,
That's my question.
that's a reference to the Vedas. The Vedas predate Hinduism and Brahmanism in that they're less a ancient Asian religion than a philosophy. The Vedas are cultural and go back to early Hindustan. Before India was called India, it was Hindustan. Before Hindu was 1,000 variations, it's like Protestantism. Well, you're a Protestant, meaning you're not a Catholic, but are you a Baptist or a Methodist or a Lutheran or a Pentecostal or a Presbyterian or Church of the Holy Square, Booga Booga? There's so many variations on what it means to be a Protestant or a Protestant, one who protests the Catholic Church but is still Christ-oriented. Hinduism's the same way. It's thousands of religions based on Brahmanism. And a lot of that comes out of some really, really old books known as the Vedas. And these include the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita. I'm not strong in this area, but I know about it. And what I would say is the primary thread, Patrick, that runs through all of it is monism. as opposed to monotheism. Monotheism is one God, often visualized as a supreme being. That's the Abrahamic religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. God is a supreme being, often personified as a man on a cloud, the Father aspect, like the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, reaching out, but living outside its creation. Monism of Hinduism, Buddhism, Chinese Taoism, Jainism, Sikhism, all of these religions or religious philosophies share a monistic view, which is awareness is divine, the ultimate, the absolute, or consciousness, and it's a infinite eternal ocean in which all apparently separated things are immersed, but separation is an illusion. So non-duality, that term, Google that term, non-dual, non-duality, is the primary thread that connects all of Eastern philosophy and the mysticism of the world, even Christian mysticism. Even Christian mysticism, I'll say it with the emphasis that way, is largely monistic, prefers monism to monotheism, in that it's about the awareness or the consciousness that in Christian religion is ignored other than through the word love. The word love in Islam, Judaism, less so in Judaism. Jews have a hard time with that word. Not that they don't know what love is. They're very loving people, and it's a very loving tradition. But the concept of spiritual love is a little different in Judaism. Not quite as expansive as in Christianity and Islam. And then there are the variations between the conservative and the mystical or the liberal. For example, in Islam, the Sufis, their idea of love is very Eastern, and in that it's like everywhere equally present. That love in that sense clearly is a synonym for consciousness or awareness. So Eastern mysticism, Eastern religion in general, everything is in the one. Every seemingly separated thing is actually part of one thing. Whereas in monotheism, we are separate. Things are separate. You are not me. I am not you. I am not this computer. I am not this Zoom class. And the creator is not the creation. But in Eastern philosophy and the real mystical aspects of the world, it's all one thing. The one is in everything, and everything is in the one. There's a lot to that. We could do hours and hours, days, weeks, months, just on that topic. But that's my best 5 minutes. I hope that helps. And Dora, are you still there?
Yes, I was going to offer a comment when you were talking about the email, but that's okay. I'm done.
Oh, I'd still like to hear it.
I was just going to say that when someone sends me an email and it sounds so outrageous, I just take myself into a mind set that, perhaps my email was outrageous, and then it gives me a whole different perspective. And then when I answer the email, I start to ask questions. And then I figure out that they got it from a totally complete perspective because they were missing some key information that I assumed they had.
The power in taking responsibility and not judging others, but turning it on yourself is avoided by most people because it feels like self-blame. Oh,
Mhm.
now I'm to blame. Now you're going to blame me. But the wisdom in what you're saying is extraordinary. And I want to acknowledge that anytime we take ownership and responsibility for any situation, whether we initiated it or are receptive to it, it's my reality. This is about understanding me. And then, and only then, do I look outside and empathize and demonstrate compassion and insight. But often the way I say it to myself, Dora, is I can't do anything for anybody that I'm not able to do for myself. And so it
Mhm.
is with understanding. I can't understand another person.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly not going to judge another person first so as to understand myself. It's totally backwards. Know thyself is the platitude, from ancient times, not figure out other people.
Yeah.
So let me acknowledge the strength and the power in that. That's very smart.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, folks, it's 12:36. I'm in a boogie. I can't thank you enough for being present here today. I really enjoy the group mind. I love doing this live. And I very much appreciate your questions and your comments. You can always email me at awmysteryschool@gmail.com. The Ageless Wisdom Mystery School. The email is awmysteryschool@gmail.com. And if you just go to my website, michaelbenner.com, you can sign up for the free Zoom class newsletter. Get the link that way. Send your friends there, michaelbenner.com. And the red circle will give you access to my calendar. And if you've never done a private intensive, the first one is free. The private, do it by phone, do it by Zoom. I prefer Zoom, but phone's good too. We start out with the phone anyway. And it's an introduction to the private intensive. These change people's lives. So private, it's confidential, it's one-on-one. There's consulting if you're seriously stuck with an issue, a problem. There's training if you just want the tools and the techniques. And we blend the two. It's the Goldilocks solution. It's much more intensive than life coaching, but much less intrusive than so-called psychotherapy or analysis. It's a perfect middle way between the two. So if you will unmute and say thank you, goodbye, hello, namaste. By the way, that means I greet the God in you, the oneness of all things in you. I will say namaste and aloha and salam, and see you next week.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Michael.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
See you Wednesday.
Okay, Mindy, were you here all along?
I was.
I was missing you.
Oh, I was watching you. I was so lost in that meditation. I found it transportive.
I did too.
More than well, everyone's different, but that one I'm going to make sure that I can access because I found it to be just pitch perfect.
I went away myself in that one. I mean,
I could sense that.
yeah.
It was
Yeah.
very what do I want to say? It was not I could feel that.
I was totally out of my body.
Yes, I could see it. That was pretty obvious.
Obvious to you, maybe not everybody.
Well, and then, I mean, it's funny. I'm sure people go pretty deep with that, and it's good that you give people the chance to come back up because, I mean, for a while there, I was back at work doing cases in the OR, and then I came back, and it was just never know where you're going to go.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yes. I just so appreciated
the practical nature of, you know, us examining our lives and being at peace with them, as opposed to coming back down to earth and micromanaging every little detail that Melinda doesn't think is right in her life. Clutter and the projects, and then just that you're not all that, and
Yeah.
it's very powerful. I wish I could remember it, but I think the key, like you said, is repetition.
Oh yeah, for sure.
We've been doing this for years, and I'm a new like,
40 years.
yeah.
40 years.
Onward
And
and upward.
speaking of coming back down to earth, I'm going to go get some toast.
So that sounds good. I'll see ya.
I'll see you Wednesday, yeah?
Yeah, yeah. Bye.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.